Okay, this discussion of factors affecting herbicide performance in plants assumes that users have an applicator appropriate to the task and that it has been calibrated to apply the correct volume and the proper amount of active ingredient per acre. The discussion also assumes that the correct herbicide has been selected and that it will be applied at the right time. If these things are not ensured, they will nearly always negatively affect herbicide performance and environmental quality. But because human errors and their results are not precisely predictable, because we can't plan our accidents, the discussion herein assumes human error has been avoided. So these are the fundamental concepts and learning objectives for this topic. Okay, one of the factors that affects herbicides performance on plants is the mechanical mechanisms that bring herbicide to the plant. This includes sprayer calibration, herbicide drift, and herbicide volatility. In general, it is important to understand the equipment required to apply herbicides properly. In most cases, herbicides are applied as broadcast sprays to an entire area, whether the area is an entire field or a band over the crop row. So which means that the application of the herbicides go everywhere. So there is no specific area, there is no selective areas, spots that we apply herbicide, usually as a broadcast. Not all of the areas sprayed may have weeds, but it is all sprayed. This is mean by the broadcast. This means that herbicide is commonly applied where there are no weeds actually. This, while appearing inefficient, has been efficient because it has been easier and less expensive to spray an entire area, and the technology to spray just the weeds has not been available yet. So you need to make sure that you select the most appropriate nozzle, sprayer, and understand the purpose of application before applying the herbicide as shown here. So you can pause the video and then look at every application, what kind of type of product, herbicide type of product, the direction of the application here, and how you use the nozzle. Do you use the reflect nozzle, flat nozzle, or hollow nozzle? So this is how the broadcast nozzle with fan nozzle. For broadcast, a band area, which means that you have a rows or batas here, and then you can just follow the batas or follow the band, and there are a few others nozzle or cone types. So to apply the herbicide. So this is basically how the spray calibration. You need to understand your weed first, what type of herbicide that you want to use, when you want to use it, and the area of the planting that you want to apply your herbicide with. So these are the types of things that you need to understand before you calibrate your before you calibrate your machine, or before you calibrate your equipment for herbicide application. So to reach the target plant, okay, so there are few things that you need to consider. First is spray drift. Okay, spray drift is a movement of airborne liquid spray particles. It is often unseen and may be unavoidable. It can be minimized. Drift increases with wind speed and the height above the ground at which drops are released, and decreases as a spray droplet size increases. Ideally, uniform drops between 500 micron, kind of like moderate rain, and 1 millimeter or around 1000 microns, it is a heavy rain in diameter, are desired. Okay, drops of this size minimize but do not eliminate drift, especially if spraying is done when wind speed is less than 5 miles per hour. It is not uncommon, especially in arid environments, for water to evaporate within 200 to 300 feet of the point of delivery, so only the herbicides and associated organic solvents remain to drift. Okay, small droplets will drift a long way in a light breeze. Large drops decrease drift problems. Spraying in strong wind should be avoided, but it is difficult when large areas must be sprayed with herbicides that require application at particular growth stage or before crop emergence. Farmers and other applicators must apply herbicides at the proper time. However, if other considerations take precedence over drift avoidance, problems may ensure when the applicators or a neighbor's crops are injured or the environment is contaminated by improper application. Drift is not just a problem of historical interest. In the late 1980s, clomazone drift affected many non-target plants after application to soybeans in the Midwestern of United States. More recently, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has expressed concern about drift from sulfonylera herbicides that can damage flowers, seeds, and fruits of grapes, alfalfa, cherries, and asparagus. The states of Washington prohibited use of sulfonylera herbicide within 14 miles of non-target crops because of drift potential and requires 24 hours notification of intent to spray. So that is drift. So which means that you want when you apply herbicide in this area because of the wind and or any environmental factors, the herbicides will go to another side because of the wind, and this is a drift. So we want to make sure that you have the droplets is big enough so the wind will not carry the herbicides to another places, or you need, but at the same time you need to be small enough to make sure that the herbicides can apply to the targeted crop, targeted weed in the targeted area. So this is the drift. On the other hand, volatility here measures the tendency of a chemical to vaporize, that is, to move from the liquid to the gaseous state. Volatility is related to an herbicide's vapor pressure and ambient temperature. Volatilized herbicides may cause damage in another place or reduce effectiveness at the point of application. The most common example of volatilization is found with some esters of phenolic acids such as in 2,4-Ds. If herbicides do not drift or volatilize, the next factors that affects performance is retention, spray retention, which means that based on the leaf properties or other factors characteristics of spray solution, and also the environment, which is depending on the moisture, temperature, and light. In terms of in terms of leaf properties here, okay, in terms of leaf properties here, for spray retention, a foliar herbicide must remain on leaf long enough for absorption to occur. Plants differ in their ability to retain water on leaf surfaces. For example, broadleaf species with large flat leaves disposed parallel to the ground retain liquid droplets more easily than grass leaves. The ability of an herbicide to control weeds selectively can depend on morphology, such as shape, and chemical variations between phases. Large broadleaves disposed parallel to the soil surface are easier to hit with spray solutions applied by most field sprayers. Herbicide molecules are most likely to contact and remain on the broadleaves of dicots than on grass leaves, which are often disposed perpendicular to the soil surface. Because leaves are one of the principal entry points for herbicides, their structure and functions are important. The primary leaf tissues are epidermal, mesophyll, and also vascular. The epidermis is present on upper and lower leaf surfaces and consists of a single layer of interlocked cells with no chloroplast. It is covered by the cuticle that is often layered with waxes. These constitute a varnish-like layer or film that retards movement of water in and out of leaves. It is incorrect to assume that plants with thick, waxy cuticles absorb less herbicides or absorb the same amount more slowly than plants with thin cuticles. The reason is cuticle hydration and composition are more important factors in herbicide absorption than cuticle thickness. Plant leaves that are growing in shade generally have thinner cuticles than those growing in full sun, and young leaves have thinner cuticles than old ones. Thinner cuticles are one reason, but not the only reason, that young plants are more susceptible to herbicides than old plants. Other factors in spray retention, the location. Okay, the location of growing points or plant meristematic areas can determine herbicide selectivity. In grasses, growing points are usually at the base of plants and are protected from foliar herbicides by surrounding leaves. So this is for grasses. So grasses in this is the growing points. In some plants, growing points are actually below the soil surface. Okay, below the soil surface and not exposed to direct contact by foliar applied herbicides. In contrast, broadleaf plants usually have terminal exposed growing points that may be readily contacted and susceptible to herbicide action. So this area of growing point for broadleaf. Selectivity can be obtained through herbicide placement. So, and herbicide can be applied to plant foliage only to soil and weeds between crop rows, or only over the crop rows. A non-selective herbicide can be used selectively by controlling where it is applied. Selective placement can also be obtained by using granular herbicides that have little or no foliar activity, because granules do not adhere to foliage. Composition of the spray solution is very important aspect of selectivity and activity. A spray solution with little or no surfactant may have higher surface tension and just bubble up and on a cuticular surface as water does on a newly waxed car. Okay, in this case, there is less opportunity for absorption because the contact area between the applied herbicides and the plant surface is very limited. On the other hand, a spray solution with a surfactant decreases liquid surface tension, spreads out water droplets, increases surface coverage, and wets the surface, thereby promoting penetration. Frequently, non-phytotoxic crop oils are included in spray mixtures to promote herbicide penetration and activity. Diesel fuel sometimes has been included as an adjuvant in a water-based spray system for control of plant on rangeland because it promotes penetration of leaves and is phytotoxics. I will talk more on surfactant and adjuvant in herbicide formulation. The influence of environmental factors on herbicide phytotoxicity is almost always related to differential absorption, translocation, or metabolism. These are affected by morphological characteristics imposed on plants by the environment. Altered plant susceptibility to herbicides can often to trace the environmental stress that alters a plant's ability to absorb or metabolize herbicides. If an herbicide molecule doesn't drift or volatilize, reaches its target and is retained on the plant surface, its activity can still be affected by environmental factors. Herbicide users want to know the likely effects of weather such as rain, snow, cold, hot, dry, wet, etc. on herbicide performance. If the sun comes out immediately after application or even during application as opposed to application on a grey, cloudy day, does that affect on herbicide activity and selectivity? It is good generalization that the warmer it is, the better herbicide activity will be. For non-contact or soil-active herbicides, temperature at time of application is less important. What if an herbicide is applied and it rains soon after? With phenoxyacid, penetration occurs within an hour and it's rain fast after 1 hour. So rain several hours after application does not affect activity. On the other hand, some herbicides are not rain fast for up to 6 hours after application. Atrazine, for example, is a soil applied herbicide and is rarely applied to plant foliage because it penetrates poorly and rain will wash some off even if it rains as many as 7 days after application. So in general, high temperatures and low humidity are detrimental to cuticular absorption. Plants growing under this condition may produce thicker, less penetrable cuticles or have thin, poorly hydrated cuticles that are not easily penetrated. So sprays dry rapidly and water stress may cause stomatal closure. So high relative humidity reduces water stress, delays drying and favors open stoma. So plants sprayed with an herbicide under warm, dry conditions may die more quickly if they are moved to warm, moist conditions. So warm temperatures that are not excessive, so around usually promote herbicide penetration and action. Rain and hard winds before treatment may weather the cuticle, and more spray may be tracked and taken up by weathered leaves. So selectivity is a function of three factors: absorption, translocation, and metabolism. In some cases, absorption can explain why an herbicide affects one plant and not another. For many modern herbicides, an absorption is not a major barrier to activity. Studies of herbicide selectivity frequently find metabolic ability of rate of application to be the defining difference between species. But not all differences in selectivity of new herbicides are due to metabolism. A major determinant of herbicide selectivity is the plant's growth stage when the herbicide is applied. Some plants show maximum susceptibility in early seedling stages and greatly reduce susceptibility after fruiting. Much of this can be traced to absorption. We will talk more on plant and soil, herbicide and plant in the next video.